Hello everyone, AmyR here with Prairie Paper and Ink, and I have another card making video for you guys, and I remembered in time to turn the camera on to film this. Honestly, I wasn't even sure it was going to work. It was one of these sort of times when I had an idea in the back of my mind and was experimenting. So basically, what I wanted to do was create a watercolor effect with this background stamp, which is the bold diagonal stripes background from MFT, and my Artist Loft watercolors. So you could pretty much use any watercolors for this. I've done this before with a floral stamp. I have a video on my channel of that. But this time I wanted to create basically a rainbow effect, and I was using a graphic stamp with the stripes and like doing a full background. So I had no idea if this was even going to work. You do need to experiment with this with, how much water you use to pigment, and yeah, you just have to kind of fiddle it and see what works for you. So I was just flying by the seat of my pants, just mixing up the color with some water and then just painting it onto each stripe. And I wanted to create a rainbow effect, so I was basically following the colors as they kind of appear on the little palette here. And yeah, these are Artist Loft ones. I got these at Michael's for like around $7 Canadian. Obviously, you can get them with a coupon. I will link to similar ones in the description box, like to online sources. It's a great little set of watercolors. I think I've done I think I did a review on them. I can't remember. Anyway, they do have kind of a chalky consistency, but that also works quite well, I think, for techniques like this. It just seems to cling onto the stamp. So I wasn't sure if it was still going to work because you can kind of see how it's a little bit patchy on the stamp. So I was like, oh, this is just going to look like such a mess. But I was like, I'm going to do it, finish painting the whole thing, and we'll see what happens. It only literally took me maybe a little over 5 minutes to paint on all the colors. Again, totally random, just adding colors as I saw fit until I had enough to do a background. And as I'm painting on the new colors, obviously the previous colors are starting to dry more and more. So once I'm done, I give it a quick mist with my little spray bottle, which you don't really see on camera. But yeah, I just grabbed it and missed it two or three times. Again, it kind of just depends on the area. If you live in a more humid area, you might not ever have to do this. But I noticed some of them were starting to dry a bit, so I misted it. And then I grabbed my watercolor cardstock, which is the Tim Holtz Distress watercolor cardstock that's pre-cut, to an A2 size. And I'm pressing the smooth side into the stamp, trying to be very careful with not shifting it or, making it slide around at all. And also trying to press it in very evenly because I obviously want the color to soak into the cardstock. And I had no idea if this was even going to work. I expected to lift it up and it be a hot mess, and I was so excited when I lifted it off and it worked. Like, the idea in my head translated onto the cardstock, and I had these great colored stripes. And if you can hear little grunts and noises in the background, Gavin just woke up from his nap. So he's behind me in his swing. So anyway, it worked. So I set it aside, and since there was still some color left on the stamp, I was like, ooh, might as well get a second impression and see if that works too. So I grabbed a second piece, same thing, pressed the smooth side into the stamp. This time I used more pressure and let it sit for a bit longer to try and soak up what color was left on the stamp, and again, wasn't sure if it would even work. But it did. It's obviously not as saturated and as solid of a stripe, but it's cool. It gives kind of a distressed look. So as of doing this voiceover, I haven't used it yet. I wanted to make another card, and hopefully I can post it with the blog post when I upload this video, because it's going to take a long time to upload this video because I filmed it in real time. And other than this cleaning part of the video, I'm going to post it like this, just something different, but it's going to take a long time to upload. Anyway, cleaning the stamp, I just used baby wipes. Took 2 baby wipes to clean it. You can also run this under the sink with some soap and water, but the sink wasn't handy. My wipes were right here. It gave it a good scrubbing and it cleaned right up. I wouldn't let it sit for, let it dry on the stamp just because it would be more of a pain to clean. But yeah, baby wipes cleaned it right up and it's good to go. And then I had to have a snack because, Halloween just happened and I've got bags of my kids' Halloween candy like right here. And Reese's Pieces are my thing. They're great when card making because, yeah, they're candy coated so you don't get like smudges on your cardstock. And yeah, I have a thing for peanut butter. So no, this is not a paid advertisement, but I will not say no if, Reese's Pieces happen to see this and wanted to send me some. You can get a hold of me. I'll give you my address. Anyway. Anyway, I die cut the striped watercolor piece with the largest die from MFT's Blueprints 2 Dynamics. I just like using that because it gives it such a nice edge. And then the black cardstock I die cut with MFT's Stitched Fishtail Flags Dynamics. And I used my little sentiment stamp to see how big I wanted it to be. Die cut that piece and then stuck it in the die again where the flat edge was because I wanted the stitching to go all the way around the perimeter. So I basically die cut it twice, if that makes sense. I hope it does. So yeah, did that. Once it was die cut, I coated the black cardstock with anti-static powder, just so that the embossing powder I'm going to use doesn't cling to the areas where my fingers have touched or anything else. And line that up on my little grid mat, which I cannot live without. For the longest time, in a lot of my videos, you guys were seeing the kind of crosshatch design on my Martha Stewart grid mat, which is actually under this. But I like having an actual grid lines that helps me to eyeball things a bit easier and line things up, make sure things are straight, stamp straight, it helps. So lined up the die cut, lined up the stamp before I got it onto the little acrylic block, and then I inked up the stamp with Versamark ink and stamped it onto this die cut here. And this stamp is from the I Love You More stamp set from MFT. And then I'm going to pour over some detail white embossing powder and grab it with my reverse tweezers because it's a small piece and I don't want to burn my fingers. And yeah, detail white embossing powder over a coffee filter because coffee filters are cheap and biodegradable and amazing for embossing because you can funnel them right back into the container and you don't have a big old mess everywhere. I've done those stinking embossing trays. Those things are horrible and staticky and I don't like them. Coffee filters are great. You get a huge bag at Costco for like $3. I linked those too in the description with all the supplies because they're just necessary. Anyway. Heated it with my heat tool until everything's melted, and then I just rubbed my fingers to remove the anti-static powder. I've shown before a Swiffer cloth works great as well. If I remember, I'll link to those in the description just because I have people ask about them. And then I was like, oh, I wonder if I can fill the heart in with some pink. But I wasn't sure if these watercolors would show up. I was going to do a pencil crayon, but I was like, I wonder if these colors will show up on dark cardstock because of, the chalky consistency. I was like, oh, they might, because it doesn't often happen that watercolors can, but these are, a little different. So this is where the cheap watercolors pay off because, yeah, I picked up some of the pink, stuck it on the scrap of black cardstock here, and then quickly just heat it with my heat tool to get it fully dry to see how it turned out. And look how vibrant it is on the black cardstock. Like, seriously, yes, thumbs up. That totally made my day. I was like, oh my goodness, so more ideas are starting to pop up with this. So once I knew that worked, I just grabbed a smaller paintbrush and picked up the same pink with that. And yeah, quickly just painted it over the inside of this little embossed heart. So it's all pink and adorable. And yes, someone wants to be heard. Anyway. So yeah, let that quickly dry, and then I've got this fun little sentiment. And then for the card base, I've just got some heavyweight white cardstock that I've cut to 4 1/4 by 11 inches. And then I scored at 5 1/2 with my Teflon bone folder. I'm pretty sure I've been talking about this a lot recently. I can't remember if I've talked about it on YouTube. I've mentioned it quite a bit on Periscope though. Teflon bone folder, if you do not own one, I highly, highly, highly recommend it. It is a game changer when it comes to card making. The price, I know, seems so ridiculous for such a basic small tool. Best bone folder I have ever used, and I've been stamping for 12 years, and I've used a lot of different bone folders. This Teflon one is amazing. It just crispest, folds, it doesn't leave a mark on your cardstock. Like, I could rave about this thing constantly. I should maybe just do a separate video of, my love for the Teflon bone folder. Anyway. Used my ATG gun and applied a fair bit of adhesive to this watercolor straight piece. It didn't warp very much, surprisingly, because, I used a fair bit of color and water here, but I always like to use a good amount of adhesive just to make sure it's really stuck to the card. And then I kind of fiddled around with where exactly I wanted to place the sentiment and then decided to pop it up. So I grabbed my foam tape and applied a good amount of that too to the back of this because this warped again with the heat embossing. And then, yeah, lined up my card base on the grid lines so that I can get the sentiment placed as straight as possible, because this is usually where I'll end up just putting something a little bit crooked and it's a pain to try and peel it off without wrecking everything. So it helps to get it right the first time. So got it applied, and then I had enamel dots sitting on my desk because I'm obsessed with them lately for whatever reason. So I just grabbed 3 different sizes of black enamel dots and stuck those onto it just to give it a little something. But I wanted the card to be fairly plain because, you know, these watercolor stripes are like taking the focus, and that's what I want it to be. So once I was done the outside of the card, of course I have to do something on the inside. So I grabbed another sentiment from the same stamp set, lined it up on my grid line again to make sure it's straight, and then got it onto my acrylic block. And then I'm going to use my favorite things, black licorice hybrid ink, and just making sure I get everything out of the way before I open the card, because I cannot tell you guys the amount of times I've opened a card and set it down, you know, on an open ink pad and ruined it. So yeah, lesson learned. So got it open, inked up my stamp with the black licorice ink, and then stamped it on the inside of the card. Again, lining everything up with my fabulous little grid line. Again, if I remember, I will link to this one in the description box. I actually just got it not that long ago. So yeah, and then looking at it again, I was like, oh, you know, I should fill those hearts in too. So I grabbed my little paintbrush and grabbed some more of the watercolor and just quickly filled in those hearts. And this is just basic heavyweight cardstock. So you wouldn't be able to do like full on like watercoloring on it, you know, without the cardstock warping or pilling, if you know what I mean. But for something tiny like this, you can totally, it works. Like, it doesn't need to be watercolor. It doesn't need to be a watercolor base at all. So I just picked up the color and filled in those little hearts just for a little something. And that's all there was to it. So someone is getting very vocal about all of this. As always, like I've said, links will be below the video if you're watching this on YouTube, or below the video if you're on my blog. Links to the supplies used and all that fun stuff. Thank you all so much for watching, and the thumbs up and the comments. I read them all and try to respond, and I'll see you guys next time. Bye.